Yeah, I still stand with Ukraine. I'm not gonna stop. What do you think, I'm gullible or something? There's no way I'm gonna change my mind on that, because the war effort is clearly working. I'll prove it to you. But first, if I could so humbly say so, my standing with Ukraine is very helpful. You've got evil Russian forces trying to take over Ukrainian regions. You've got to push them back somehow, but how are you going to do that? Well, brave people like me, thousands of miles away, stand with Ukraine. Do you not know about military strategies? Oh, and get this, some people criticize me for still standing with Ukraine. Like, what, am I making too much of a difference for you? Does it offend you seeing me be so helpful? But standing isn't all I'm doing. I've also had the Ukraine flag in my Twitter bio since early 2022. I never thought there'd be a worthy replacement for the black square. Could you imagine how stressed the Russian military generals get? They're over there freaking out like, Kevin in Portland just put a Ukraine flag in his Twitter bio. What are we gonna do? Sir, should we raise the white flag? Not yet, but get it ready. It's pretty good, right? Now, it's important that this war ends. And what I mean by that is, it's important that the public continues to support this war going on forever. But the heartless critics say, oh, but there's no good reason for the war to keep going on. It's just gonna cost countless lives, hundreds of billions of dollars, and set off the nuclear Armageddon that is World War III. All that is true, but what they're losing sight of is the fact that this war is absolutely necessary to save Ukraine's democracy.
The people of Ukraine deserve all of our attention, our respect and admiration for the courage that they have in protecting their democracy, and in doing so, protecting democracy writ large.
Hearing people who are controlled by the military-industrial complex say that over and over again, that's all the justification I need for supporting this war. Trustworthy politicians on both sides of the aisle keep saying it, so naturally, I'm on board. In fact, I think the war is priority number one because, first of all, we must save Ukraine's democracy to save our democracy. In Ukraine being a neighboring country of the US and all, the logic of that speaks for itself. We need to stop at nothing to save Ukraine's democracy, even if that means destroying our democracy. Save Ukraine's democracy, a super simple and very legit justification for the war. Because Ukraine definitely has a democracy. I mean, you just look at His Holiness Zelensky. He does things like lock up his political rivals, shuts down churches, bans gay marriage, all the things you have to do once in a while to run a democracy. Oh, and you know how having elections is absolutely essential in order to have a democracy? Well, Zelensky came out recently and said if the war is still going on, which it definitely will be, he's gonna cancel the elections in Ukraine. I mean, him being willing to make that kind of sacrifice to save Ukraine's democracy, that says a lot about his leadership. And assuming the elections are canceled, then who becomes president of Ukraine? It wouldn't be Zelensky. Oh, he would just stay in power? Ah, whew. I don't know if he's realized it or not, but that is a very selfless sacrifice. I think even higher of him now. I mean, willing to make the sacrifice of keeping himself in power by canceling Ukraine's elections? Now, that kind of selfless dedication to democracy says a lot about his character. I mean, I'm an even bigger fan of him than I was before, if that's even possible. All to save Ukraine's democracy. Now get this, the US has sent over $100 billion in funding to Ukraine to make sure this war keeps going on. That is ridiculous. Why haven't we sent more? You can look at rundown cities in the US, poverty, people who are going hungry that receive just a small amount of funding from our own government. And I say, with a little bit of money that they do receive, why can't we just send that to Ukraine too? I get pissed that some of my tax dollars go towards America. That's not what I signed up for. You might not know this, but how we're involved in the war by constantly sending money to Ukraine is a strategy to keep us out of the war. And it's working, because we're gonna need to keep sending money to Ukraine or else something terrible might happen, like the war could come to an end or something like that. There's no end in sight to this war because Putin is a monster and Zelensky is an absolute saint. I mean, Russia has been wanting to come to the table to negotiate peace talks, but Zelensky has refused. Why? Because who wants peace with a monster when you can just be at war with the monster? I mean, yes, it's known that all it would take to end the war is for NATO to keep its original agreement with Russia by not going into neighboring countries. But that's not what Zelensky wants. In Ukraine not being a member of NATO, Zelensky pulls a surprising amount of weight with them. Just to be clear, I fully support the war going on for as long as it takes, but preferably longer. And the longer it goes on, the more innocent people die. But because I don't see those people with my own eyes, that's just a price I'm happily willing to pay to continue to be persuaded into supporting this war. Now get this. Zelensky recently took time out of his busy schedule of cashing checks from the US and canceling elections to meet with Greta Thunberg. I mean, two world leaders like that meeting? Incredible. I imagine they were coming up with some genius eco-friendly war ideas. Like, how about instead of using metals for bullets, you use paper to make your bullets? Better for sea turtles and worked with plastic straws. And instead of body armor being made out of pollutant-rich Kevlar, why not use recycled plastics for your bulletproof vests? And they probably even came up with army tanks that run on dependable solar power that you can only use when the sun's up. And they probably even came up with safe space zones for soldiers on the battlefield who feel emotionally stressed. I can't wait to see all the productive changes that came from their meeting. There's a famous Mark Twain quote that says, "It's easier to fool people than it is to convince people that they've been fooled." I have no idea what that means, but what I do know is I'm so committed to appearing to do the right thing that in 10 years, I'll still be standing with Ukraine. Nothing's gonna change my mind on that. But the critics of the war, I mean, some people are so foolish.